So today I'll be answering a super important question that I get a lot of times, and that is what happens if you studied in another province before coming to Manitoba? Does it affect your MPNP points? So here is the exact question that was asked in the comment section. It says, can you tell me, I have done 1 year program in another province and moved in Manitoba directly to do 1 year study. Here, I applied for my work permit. That's why I want to know how much points I will lose for MPNP EOI. So in this video, we are going to break that down. So when it comes to your expression of interest profile, the MPNP awards points based on how strong your connection is to Manitoba. So if you've completed a post-secondary program in Manitoba, you will earn 100 adaptability points. Now, here's the catch. If you studied in another province first, even just for 1 year, and then you have moved to Manitoba, the system will deduct 100 points under the risk assessment section. Why is that? Well, because your first Canadian ties were outside Manitoba, and that weakens your connection in the eyes of the province. So if you did any prior study in another Canadian province before coming to Manitoba, you will lose 100 points in your MPNP EOI profile. So here's a look at the assessment grade. So under factor 6, which is risk assessment, you will see if you have studied in another province, you'll lose 100. And in the same breath, if you had work experience in another province, you will also lose 100. And then if both is true, where you have both work experience and you have studied in another province, then that's a total of 200 points that you will lose. And that's important because we were looking at the studying part of it, but also note that if you have work experience in another province, that you will also lose 100. And the net effect is you'll lose 200. So when you look at, this is the EOI, this is a ranking points grade. So you will see the language, you will see the age, the work experience, education, adaptability. So if you have any of these things, for example, close relative, previous work experience in Manitoba, which is 6 months or more, you get 100. And this is where you would pretty much be losing this 100 because you have studied in another province. Well, it doesn't mean that you're disqualified. Okay, when you look at the draws, you can see how much you're going into the pool with. If you qualified under the international education stream, then that's kind of assessed differently. So this is the assessment grade. I can paste this in the description for reference. So this happens even if you later studied and graduated in Manitoba. But guess what? You still don't need to worry. You can always strengthen your profile by 1, getting a full-time, long-term job at least for a year, showing strong community or family ties, or writing a clear letter of intent about staying in Manitoba permanently. Okay? Just remember though that MPNP wants to prioritize applicants who have shown a clear, direct connection to the province and not necessarily those who just come to the province after studying elsewhere. And so you have to make sure that your letter of intent and your ties are clearly articulated. So in this specific case where the question was asked, this is your situation. You've completed 1 year of study in another province, then you moved to Manitoba and did 1 more year. And you applied for your postgraduate work permit in Manitoba, and now you are applying for the MPNP. So you will still get 100 points, like I mentioned earlier, for graduating from a Manitoba institution, but you will also lose 100 points because you had previously studied outside of Manitoba. So the net effect is there's no gain in adaptability points from studying in Manitoba. In that case, it doesn't make you disqualified, however. So what can you do? Well, first and foremost, you're encouraged to always be truthful in your EOI. And remember that the MPNP can see your entire immigration history. So if you don't report that, then that can be seen as misrepresentation. You can always strengthen your application by getting a full-time long-term job offer in Manitoba, demonstrating ties to the province, such as family, community, volunteering, etc. And of course, writing a solid letter of your intention, showing that you want to live and work in the province long term. Again, do not hide your previous education in another province. It can be seen as misrepresentation if that is found out later on. So the bottom line is to be honest in your expression of interest. Studying outside of Manitoba does not disqualify you, but you should know how it impacts your score. So please be on the lookout for the next video, where I'll answer other questions posed in the comments section. And if you found this video helpful, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, and leave your EOI questions in the comments. You might see your question featured in a future video.